Hey, it's Joe Solari, and welcome to the Business of Writing. Today's guest is Chelle Honiker. How you doing, Chelle?
Hey, Joe, I'm great.
I'm pretty excited about this. Having some time to really dig into the stuff you're doing, specifically around your magazine. So why don't you start out with just kind of who you are and this minor undertaking that you've taken on?
Tiny little thing.
This little thing you decided to do with all the other things.
Bitty thing. Yeah. So I'm Chelle Honiker. I'm the publisher of Indie Author Magazine. We are a startup. We started in May of this year, publishing our very first issue. We now have 6 under our belt, and started with a group of indie authors who had met and worked together on different projects for about a year and a half. And just decided, hey, we're not doing anything in the middle of a pandemic. Let's put on a show in Old Man Miller's barn. We basically just got together and said, what's the best way to share all this great information that we were sharing with one another? And so we kind of decided that an app and a magazine would be the best format for that, because we can kind of dive into things a little more in depth than, say, blog posts or just video. And so we've got the magazine, which has the print version and the EPUB versions, as well as 2 apps and our video channel. So we can kind of do deeper dives for different topics. So it's really meant to complement a lot of the sites that are out there, and where certain groups don't let you talk about craft, we can talk about craft, or where certain groups only focus on wide, we can focus on everything. So we're kind of hoping we are a hub for your information, first line of defense, so to speak. So if you've got a question, you come to us first, and we'll point you to the place that has the good answer.
Yeah, and it from the issues that I've read, it seems like you are trying to touch on everything, not just like, hey, this is about marketing or this is about craft. It's the whole enchilada.
Yeah. So there's 24 of us that are writing. And the way we started out was we decided the first year of the magazine would follow the loose iteration of how a writer gets from ideation to publication and marketing and beyond. And so we set each issue up to have a central theme or topic. But then within that, we've got 3 articles that focus on that theme. And then we've got 21 articles total in each issue. So the others focus on different things. You're always going to find a letter from Indie Annie, who's our mascot, our avatar, and she gives good advice. We call her the sassy aunt with a tipple in her teacup. And she tells you like it is, but she's also hilarious and fun. You're always going to have a featured author. That's somebody that we feel best embodies the indie spirit, someone that is doing great work that someone else that's just getting started can point to and say, I might be able to do that. That person inspires me. And this month we expanded it to be a team. So this month we have Dr. Danielle and Dakota Kraut of Mountaindale Press. So their stories were inextricably linked, and we decided we can't just have a single person on the cover. We couldn't just put Dakota on the cover, who's technically the author, because Danielle, his wife, is just such a huge part of his success story that it was a team effort.
Yeah. So, I mean, that in that case, she's the CEO of Mountaindale. He's not.
Yeah, she is.
Love
it.
And yeah, I mean, there's such great stuff in that particular story that, because you've got a husband and wife team, you've got a genre that didn't exist 10 years ago. There's really a lot of stuff there that's exciting. And
and they're completely shaping it. Their story is so near and dear to my heart, because they sort of fell into success, right? They weren't expecting it, but they capitalized on it, and they did it in a way that is incredibly smart and incredibly fearless. I love their story so much.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah. And when you look at that, how they, they're not in a situation where they've got anybody to copy, right?
Right.
Like they're at a level in a genre that there's nobody you can say, oh, well, they're looking at these people as what to do next. They're really trying to figure this stuff out on their own. And
they are
so good about sharing it.
I was going to say they're incredibly gracious about sharing it too, right? And I think that's sort of what embodies indie authors as an industry is that we don't compete with one another, right? Because it's not a case where if someone's buying a phone or a widget, you buy one phone and then you're done, right? In the indie author world, you buy a book and then, oh, hey, when you're done with that book, you buy another book. And so it behooves all of us to keep the readers engaged and satisfied. And the authors that are succeeding are really generous with that, with their attention and with their time to kind of shepherd other authors and help them so that they can all keep those readers happy and engaged and pointing back to one another and making sure that everybody sees, other authors that are writing good stuff in that genre or in that trope or, whatever that area is. So we're in a very unique position, and we're also still just at the very cusp. We're at the beginning stages. So there's a lot of authors that have enjoyed great success in the last 5 years, but I think the next 5-10 years are going to be even bigger. They're going to be even more monumental for indie authors.
For sure. For sure. I mean, you think about like, if we jumped in the Wayback Machine and went back, even just 7 years ago, if you were a successful indie author and they tried to predict what was going to be happening right now, they wouldn't have gotten any of it right.
No.
And it's so much better than it was, right?
Yeah.
We talk about the Mountaindale Press, and that you look at Lit RPG didn't exist. And then, where's most of the sales in Lit RPG? It's from audio.
Right.
Like that's so profoundly different than, I'm just going to go write some fantasy books and maybe I'll sell them on ebooks and print.
Yeah.
It's like that whole market that's being served really didn't exist. And I 100% agree that our ability to kind of guess what's going to happen isn't as important as just being prepared to, when those opportunities come, to exploit them.
Right. And that comes from having a great product that you can then slice and dice later into something else. So you have a book, but now you can, some people can say you can translate that into more serial fiction, right? So if you've written something, it might translate to serial fiction. Some people will disagree. I tend to think you have to have the right combination for that, but you could also make it an audiobook. You could also make it a video series. There's just so many opportunities for you now to take that one work and leverage it across a lot of different channels and a lot of different distribution networks, which, didn't exist. No, I never thought audio would be wrestled back from the gatekeepers to the point where we could do our own. I never thought they would open it up to people like Draft Digital and, some of the others that are now putting together packages to find your own narrators. I always thought that would be sort of centralized and expensive, because it's always been expensive or cost prohibitive. But now it's not.
And I think that what you'll see is this is a recurring theme, right? Like there's a lot of folks that tried to keep that way, right? Yeah. But eventually what happens is like, okay, I can, as a content creator, there's no reason why I can't just pick up the phone and call this narrator and say, hey, would you work for me directly? Right. And then it's like, yeah, I would love to. And all of a sudden the game's changed. And I think on that same kind of thinking, like we're probably, 10 years, maybe at the most 20 years away from an author being able to make their own cartoons.
Yeah.
Right. Like why wouldn't that happen?
Maybe not even that far.
Right. I mean, I'm just hedging my bets, right?
Yeah. Their own films, their own indie films, their own.
That's already happening, right? Like,
you could do that with AI, but I think it's going to be decentralized to the point where you could hire even amazing actors and do, web series and webisodes and things like that. The sky's the limit. And I think what's great about it is that it's become less expensive to produce those things and easier to find sources to help you with that thing. For example, a magazine. There's no way 10 years ago we could have started a magazine and enjoyed the success. It would have been a zine, right?
Right. Using yarn to tie the corners together when you hole punch it.
It would have been, I produce a zine in the basement of my mom's house kind of thing. But, we have access to some pretty impressive tools and some pretty impressive resources to be able to build a magazine that has a membership-based magazine. And then, just the infrastructure. We've got the website, we've got the membership, we've got the affiliate program, and then we've got the 2 apps, and then we've got a syndication network. So we can actually syndicate our content onto other websites, and we can actually translate it into 13 different languages before it hits those websites.
Wow.
And then we've got an ad server that kind of powers how we get paid if people read those articles on those syndicated sites. We have a pay-per-view model. So they're not really strictly subscriptions. It's very affordable for someone to have amazing content on their website and, only pay for what's consumed. Because once we've got it, it's like with indie authors, we can slice and dice it in several different ways. So it's, we have a very intricate system, but it works pretty well. And because I'm the tech, I'm the CEO and the COO and the CTO and the CMO. We've been able to string it together, and it works really well so that the writers can focus on writing and I can focus on what's under the hood. And I have some help. I have some programmers and some different things, but they're people that I've worked with on a fractional basis for different things. I've got a programmer that's in Pakistan, for example, and he comes in and beta tests and tweaks and codes and Flutter when I can't, get that deep into things. But for the most part, we've used tools pretty much off the shelf or ones that I've used in the past.
Well, I think that's to kind of get meta for a second on this whole thing is like, there's this magazine, which is this great resource, but like and I've said this before and I'll say it right now, I'm really impressed with the quality of the product, how you have this diverse, dispersed workforce that is able to pull it all together and manage it with this tech stack that you've developed. It just is crazy to me. And from an author's perspective, like if they can look at this magazine, not just as like, hey, get it to read it because it's got good articles, but look at it as like this process and system you've built to scale.
Yeah.
Like it has the capacity to scale now. Granted, you're probably going to talk about some of your ups and downs and the bullshit we all have to deal with when we start something up, but like it in such a short time, it's scaled to this size. It's pretty amazing.
Well, we built it to scale, right? We could have started with just a magazine and we could have just put out a magazine and been done with it. But I really, as we looked at the numbers, and Alice Briggs is the creative director, she and I looked at the numbers together and we thought, we can help a lot more people. That's the goal of it, is to help a lot more people, a lot more indie authors. And we've gotten feedback that's been really gratifying. Like Stephen Higgs said, oh my God, I wish I'd had this when I first started. I could have gotten through, the startup phase so much faster if I'd known this. So that's what we live for. That's the feedback. And that's what we decided to do. So we wanted to get it in the hands of people faster. And also, if there are changes, we're able to respond to those changes. And we also wanted it in a format that anybody could read. So little things you won't kind of notice. But if you go to the website, you'll notice that we have a link down at the bottom that asks if you need accommodations for neurodivergency, right? So if you're dyslexic or you have to read, you have to have things pointed out to you like buttons and things, you can actually see those. We wanted it to be relatable to everybody. And so those are the kinds of things that we paid attention to that we didn't necessarily need to. So we started with the big vision, and we've kind of been true to that big vision all the way through. And then, having the apps, we wanted to have immediacy. So if something changes, we can push a change out and people get the latest and most up-to-date information. So it wasn't just a case of we could have started a blog, but there's already great blogs out there, right? We wanted to put context around some of these. And we also wanted to do it from the perspective of the indie author and not necessarily a vendor, because a lot of the people that are out there that have great informational blogs are vendors. And so who writes for the magazine, there's 24 writers for the magazine. They're all indie authors. So, and they've probably tried that product or tried that system or tried that method or know somebody that has done or tried that, because we all met at 20 books in Edinburgh a couple of years ago. So we all come from the same, primordial ooze. We all start from the same thing. And so we can relate to the people that are reading the magazine a lot better than, say, a vendor. Like, I love our vendors. I love every single vendor that's out there, but some of them don't understand how dumb I am as an indie author. Like, I need it real dumbed down.
Yeah. Well, I think we all suffer from that, the curse of knowledge, right?
Yes.
But the other thing that I think is important is it's not just aggregation either, right? Like, you're actually diving in and getting this content created.
Yes.
And I know you've got stuff backlogged, but like every 30 days, there's new content coming out.
Yes. Yeah. Every 30 days. So right now we're putting January's issue together. Right now we're sourcing and editing everything that goes in January. And then, so we've got the articles that actually appear in the magazine and in print, and they are evergreen. So what you read in the magazine is going to be, relatable and true in the next 6 months. We wanted to make sure that everything, and then anything that could potentially change, we link back to the website for. So yeah, we've got content every 30 days, but it's all evergreen content. But then we also have the blogs that supplement that. So you will be contributing business stuff for the blog. Mm-hmm. So we have focuses on things that are more immediate. We've talked to Monica Leonel and Russell Nolde about putting in their Kickstarter, and we're following their Kickstarter journey all the way through. And then there's going to be a wrap up in January, but the immediacy is each week we're paying attention to what that indie author is doing. And so, so we're aggregating content constantly, and we're putting it out there in the best possible format. We're also doing things like video walkthroughs and product tours of different products and services. Again, from kind of the agnostic perspective, like, we aren't Story Origin, but we're talking with Evan Gao to walk through the product and ask the questions as an indie author. So it's not just a sales tour of something. It's us going, well, hey, how does that work? Tell me how that works, because I'm an indie author and I don't understand that part. And so there's a different context and a different perspective that we're asking and bringing forth from that same information that you can get anywhere, right? But we're giving it in a context in a different way as it relates to how we all do business and how we're all, trying not to get overwhelmed by the glut.
Right.
There's such a, right. It's such a glut.
And there's always new stuff, right? You can't, and then you just go on your social media channel for 20 minutes and it's like somebody's talking about some new thing that's changed their business. It's like, oh, do I need to go learn that now? And
we did.
Get overwhelming.
The most overwhelming thing, the thing that we hear that's most overwhelming is the social media side of things. People are like, I just don't care anymore about that tickety-tockety. I don't want to hear about that clock app no more. What we did was we broke it down to 10 tips. Like, if you've never gone on TikTok, here are the 10 things that you can do to do TikTok. Here's the first 10 things, the only 10 things you need to worry about. And we did that for TikTok, Instagram, Clubhouse, Notion, Discord, Slack. Like, we've done just the 10 things for each one of these channels. So you can either pay attention to them or not. And if you want to, here's an easy way to wade in and figure out how to make it work, how to sell books, right? I don't want to be an influencer. Nobody I know that writes books really truly wants, well, I know one person that wants to be an influencer, but no one else does.
Yeah.
No one else does. We just want to know how to sell more books. How can we use Instagram to sell books, right? And taking pictures of my lunch every day. How does that get me to books? And so we've broken it down. That's our mission, is to not give you like 30,000. Let's take those 10. What are those 10?
And see if you get something out of the 10, right? Like,
exactly. Right. And then if you don't, then it's at least, not a total sunk cost. You tried it. There was no return on the investment. You're done.
Yeah.
You're done.
Well, I'd love for you to share more about, like, I know you have a long career of like scaling things and doing entrepreneurial stuff, building up businesses. One of the things that I think that you could help a lot of authors with is understanding how to use your skill set, your particular set of skills to be able to systematize a business, right? I think that's something every author, that's something they would love to be able to do, but they don't even know where to start. And they just get overwhelmed with tech stacks and process and TPS reports.
And then you're out in the yard beating your computer to death later that night. I get it. So I have two things that everything has to solve a problem, right? Everything that we use in our tech world has to solve a problem. And the problem has to be either, does it save us time? Does it save us money? Or does it make us money, right? Those three things are the criteria that we use. Save time, save money, make money. That's it. So we looked at all the touch points that we needed. And this is what we did with, when I was an indie author and I was trying to figure this out too. I looked at all the things that were calling my names and what was the one thing that I could come back and centralize. And so it was, how can I leverage technology to do the things that I don't have to do anymore, right? And so, for example, I know it's a good practice to update my author profile on Goodreads and update my author profile on Amazon.com. And how can I do that once? Well, when I was an indie author, what I would do is I would write my blog in WordPress and I would use my RSS feed to update both of those channels automatically. And then I would take that same blog feed, that same one time that I wrote my blog, and I would send that in my newsletter. So I would blog once and automatically it would go to 3 places to keep in front of customers. So that's one way that authors can leverage technology and just like do one thing and let it go out to all these other places. With the magazine, I've actually expanded that. I write one blog post and it goes to my newsletter, which I use MailerLite's RSS feed for it's built in to how they do it. You set it up once and then forget it. And it sends your newsletter automatically to people. I update my Goodreads profile. I update my Amazon profile. I update my social media on Facebook page, Facebook group, Twitter, Instagram. And then it also feeds over to my Medium because I do a paid blog over on medium.com. So I blog one time and it hits every channel simultaneously. And authors can do that. I mean, there's no restriction. That's not a secret sauce. It's just leveraging that one thing to do all of it. So if I were to sort of give a tip on how to do those things, it would just be leverage technology as much as you can. Think about how you can, what's the one thing that you can do that nothing else can do? And that's write words. And then everything else, figure out how to leverage technology or outsource it to somebody else. And that's what we've done at the magazine and in author careers.
So one thing that I was thinking about was, so when an author is at a point where they have no system, they've just been doing this by the seat of their pants and just like, seeing how many plates they can get spinning, right?
Yeah.
And frankly, some of these folks get pretty far up in their career, right? Like they just keep, eventually you hit a bottleneck, right? Like how would you, like, what advice would you have for somebody like that to, like, how do they stop that process and start going to some type of systemization?
So the first thing you have to get a hold of is what you're doing. That's the first thing. And so when I worked with I used to teach and train people on productivity, I would say, do a brain dump and just write down everything that you do on a typical day. And then and write down how much time it takes. So for example, if you get up in the morning and you spend 20 minutes checking Facebook, write that down. And then if you make, 14 emails for blog tours, write that down. Whatever you're doing, do a really informal time study of those things so that you have a sense of how long those things take, right? And then you can start to look at how to batch those together so that you're working more efficiently and you're working with your own systems, and you can sort of craft a system, but you can't craft a system until you know all the tasks that are involved in what you're doing. So I always start with a brain dump first, just get everything on there. And then you can start to sort of skein it out in some semblance of order and see exactly what you're doing. It's very hard, especially if you decide that you think you need to hire somebody or you're ready to scale. You can't really effectively manage or hire somebody until you know how long that task takes. So if you don't know how long it takes to put social media out there, you can't effectively hire somebody, because it might take you 12 hours to do it, but it might take that social media person that's a dedicated social media person 2 hours to do it. So you've got to kind of understand the workflows at least before you hire somebody. And to do that, you have to understand your own processes to get it done. And then you can look at, okay, I'm posting on all these different social media channels. Is there something I can use to post? And Hootsuite or Promo Republic can do it. And so I would start to systematize the things like that, batch those together. So you're doing all your social media. I have most authors that I know do their social media once a week on Sunday and sit there for 3 hours and do like the whole week. And some of them even do the whole month. We do the magazine a month at a time. It takes us 3 hours. And then we have all of our social posts on all of our channels done for an entire month. Boom. And we use Promo Republic, which is amazing because it does LinkedIn and Pinstagram and all the other Pinterest and the other socials.
So when you're doing that though, like how would you help an author understand? Like I would think part of that process is like really understanding what the objective is, right? Like what is the finished product? Because I've been involved in some businesses where we do this, and 99% of small businesses, the onboarding process is figure it out.
Yeah.
Right? And that's because nobody ever taught anybody how to do anything. Yeah. Right? There's like to stop and say like, what is the result? Why are you doing this? Like, what is the end result?
Right.
How can you help author? Like, is there tools that you can think of? Because like, you're like this tool maven, like.
Sure. No.
By the way, if you're trying to figure out where to figure out all the tools are, you just solve that problem because you just come to the magazine and you read that section because you have a tool section.
I have a tool section, but you know what? Beyond that, what powers that tool section, Joe, is a free website called indieauthortools.com. And indieauthortools.com. So all of us that were writing together, we started a spreadsheet, and when the spreadsheet got to 300 lines, we're like, just build a website. So it became like a crowdsourced website where people can submit tools and product reviews and downloadables and cheat sheets and everything. It's free. We stick them in there. It's kind of our little whiteboard that we use that's free and open to everybody to use. But yeah, we do see every tool that comes down the pike. But one thing I can say is the end result to all of that is your ability to write more words, because no one else can write more words, right? That is the one thing, that is the core thing that you can do that nobody else can do. Somebody else can post on social. Somebody else can format your book. Somebody else can edit your book. Somebody else can push that book up to the bookstores. Somebody else can do all that stuff. But what they can't do and what you need to focus on is writing the words and spending the time in your craft, working in your book and not on your book, right?
Absolutely.
So if you keep that in mind, like how can I protect that time, and how can I spend that time and get rid of all the other stuff, either offloading it, outsourcing it, or making sure that it's done by technology? That's the main thing. That's your main goal. All the other stuff you can automate. Everything else you can automate.
No, that's a really good point, because, with the clients that I work with, some of them they've built pretty successful publishing businesses.
Yeah.
And at some point, we're always getting back to this realization. It's like, okay, if you want to make more money, it means that you have to write more words, because the reality is you're the thoroughbred in this stable. They want to read your books. And when you're publishing those other people's books, you're not writing. So like, even though you enjoy it and you really love mentoring writers, it's like, if we get back to the primary purpose of the business, which is to make more money for you, then guess what? We need to get you not doing the non-writing stuff.
Well, let's go back even to disastrous situations. What if it came down to, you were incapacitated, or you were hurt, right? Or something happened. How long could you survive if you had to be out of pocket for 6-8 weeks? God forbid, right? If you've automated and systematized all of the other things, your newsletter, your social media, your blog tours, everything that kind of goes along with that, it can be almost opaque to your readers. Your readers, you're not going dark. You're not immediately gone and out of their frame of reference. You can continue on until you can get back to some semblance of health and getting back to things. We have, we call this the Ichabod Strategy at the magazine. It's in case I get hit by a bus. In case I get hit by a bus, I have everybody cross-trained. I've created video documentation of how to produce the magazine, how to walk through creating the posts, how to walk through creating JPEGs. I've basically done this. And what turned me onto that was years ago, I read the E-Myth Mastery, which is a great book on how to replicate yourself. It's a book on how to scale. But I, years ago, went through a period of just really dark depression and stress, and realized that my business was so dependent on me to churn and burn and hustle every single day, that when I was not able to churn and burn and hustle, it was, okay, well, I got to get out of bed today or my kids aren't going to eat. Like, it was that dire. And I swore I would never, ever build a business, and I would never have something that was so dependent on one person, me, ever again. And so I've created these systems and strategies by necessity, because it almost killed me the last time. It literally almost killed me.
Well, and for authors, that when that downward cycle starts, it's really bad, because you have, okay, I burned myself out. Now I take a break because I have to, because either my wrists have given up or my brain or whatever it is. And then my revenues start to drop.
Right.
Now I get even more depressed, and it just keeps getting worse and worse. And then you start to have cash flow issues. Now you're really stressed. I hear you 100%. I think that, you and I have been around this long enough. We can probably point to a few people in the industry that aren't here anymore just because of that.
Yeah. And, we are creatives, and sometimes our well goes dry. And so we've got to build that into our business to allow for that. We've got to build it in so that when the well goes dry, it's not an immediate cash crunch or an immediate desperate situation. Get some things that are on autopilot so that it can carry you through those dark times until you can get to the other side. And then you're not also having to do, I hate this. It's like the walk of shame with your readers, where you go, hi, I'm back. I took a break. I'm sorry. I'm still here. I'm back. Right. Maybe you're not quite back. Maybe you're still wobbly, and maybe you still need a little bit of time, and maybe you go dark again. And then it's how much harder the second time to go back. No, this time I'm really back.
This is the real back.
I'm really, really back. You know what? Don't put yourself under that stress. Don't do that to yourself. You're human. You need that break. We all need that break. If you've got things systematized and you can carry on for a little bit of time and keep in front of your readers, have some things, backlogged or ready to go so that you can release a little novella, keep things going in the middle of it. It's better on your self-esteem, and it's better on your psyche, and it's better for your business if you can get that pressure off of you, right? We can't hustle.
Oh, for sure.
24/7. It's unsustainable. It's absolutely, take it from me, it's absolutely unsustainable. Even the magazine pace for the first 6 months was unsustainable, right? We were hustling and grinding 20 hours a day for about 5.5 months. And then it was funny, because as soon as all the stuff was done and we had everything kind of on autopilot, Alice and I looked at each other one day. We're like, wait, do we have a day off or are we forgetting something? Like nothing's on fire.
Right.
What's happening right now? We were very confused, but it was because we had gotten to the place where it was sustainable. And we used to talk every day, 3-4 hours a day. We talk twice a week now for half an hour. Our stand-up meetings went from 6 days a week to 2 days a week. And they're a half an hour at a time. And we're like, you good? I'm good. You good? I'm good.
Yeah. I think that's the hard thing is when you making that shift in thinking that it's like, okay, busyness doesn't mean things are going well, right? Like what means it's going well is like, okay, the checklist has all been checked and I didn't have to do it myself.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and it's also relying on, we were talking earlier about Nifty PM, Nifty Project Management. And we use Nifty Project Management for any project that we did, but I also used it as an indie author. So I would set up a book as a project, and then I had the different stages that book would go through. So I would have plotting, and then I would have first draft, and then I would have the first edit, and then I would have the second draft, and then I would have the second edit, and then I would have the proofreading. And I had all of those in like little Kanban swim lanes.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Trello and Asana, I'll use those, but I would have all the different chapters sort of running through this little Kanban list until we all got all of them in the last. And then I would start another project for the launch sequence. And the launch sequence would have those different swim lanes for different things. So the next tasks would be, okay, I need to make sure my keywords are done. I need to make sure that I've got my 10 categories for Amazon. I need to make sure that I've got my universal URL. I need to make sure that I've got my EPUB, like all these different tasks, and I could check them off. And then when I did another book, I would take those 2 projects and just duplicate them and bring everything back to 0 and start again. So and then I would say, I really don't need that task. And I would delete a task that I didn't need to replicate. And that was how I was able to optimize, but then iterate, right? I optimized everything and said, this took too long. I'm going to give that to somebody else. This took, okay, I'm cool with that. But I was able to kind of see everything. And I wrote, that comes back to that time study that I did. I wrote everything down so that I could know how long certain things took. And then I could tell, then I could assign at the end of it, was that worth it or not? It wasn't just a binary gut feeling where I was like, yeah, that was worth it. And then I looked at it, I'm like, no, we lost $6,000 on that. Let's not do that again. Right. We were able to really look at the data and decide what's worth it.
Well, I going through that process where it gets back to what we were talking about earlier, is you go through that with, not that you're offloading it at that point, but you're getting it set so that in the future you can decide what parts can be offloaded. And when you do, is there the information to get it done, right? Because being entrepreneurial, it's like anytime you're scaling, it's like, okay, it's always going to take extra work on your part to train somebody or to explain it or whatever it's going to be, so that in the future it's less work.
Right.
But if you never do that work, then you just stuck in that bottleneck, right? That you just can never scale past that.
And you do bottleneck yourself. And the other thing that happens is that I was the director of the Freelance Association for a few years, and I worked with freelancers all over the country. And one of the things that I heard all the time was that their clients didn't understand how long something took or didn't take. So if you as the author have an understanding of how long a task should take because you've done it yourself, you have that empathy, right? As opposed to sympathy, and you're able to accurately supervise whoever you're hiring to do that. And you can you can understand, okay, that's going to take 2 hours. I know that takes 2 hours. It shouldn't take more than 2 hours. I shouldn't have to pay more than 2 hours worth of work. But you get on Fiverr and people will say, well, I'm going to charge you only $500. Well, they're not assigning a time equivalent to that. And I am a big fan of project-based payments, but you should have an understanding of how long that takes, right? Because if you're paying somebody $500 to do something that takes 20 minutes to do, there's a little bit of an imbalance there, right?
Yeah.
So, it's one more way for you to feel confident that you're getting the best return on your investment for whatever the task is, and to decide if it's a good use of your time or if it's a good use of someone else's time. And, we're all freelancers. As a freelancer, when I calculated how much I make per hour, I don't buy groceries anymore. I allow, because it's too expensive for me to go buy groceries. It would have to make sense for me. I can have Instacart do it, and I can continue to work for that hour and make more than if I stopped and went to the grocery store and had, an hour in the grocery store, which who wants to go to the grocery store anyway?
Right.
But it's knowing what your time is worth and how you can allocate that to other things.
Well, and in some of these cases, we're in a world now where you can pay for somebody to do the job that's way better at it than you.
Yes.
Right. Like that's the beauty of this thing too, is it isn't just like, hey, getting social media off your plate is like, okay, there are people that are just better at putting together images and writing copy and they can do it faster. And
I will tell you, as good as I am at the things that I do, one of the things that I tried to do was help Alice. Alice was really focused on getting the magazine. She does the magazine layout, and it's absolutely beautiful.
Amazing.
It's gorgeous.
Yeah. It's
gorgeous. And so I was like, hey, I'll do social media this month to help you out. And it's kind of like, what you would get from Nordstrom, which is Alice, and what you get on Wish, my graphics. So even though I saved Alice time, I didn't really save Alice time because Alice had to go back in and fix all of my really crappy graphics. So you do want the right person to do the right job, not just the person that can do that job. I can do social media graphics. I can, if I needed to, lay out the magazine in InDesign. I know these tools, but should I? And the answer is no.
Right. Like
sounding no, I should not do that.
Yeah. And now the bar is set so high, like it would be like, it would probably look like crayon drawings if I did that.
It's pretty bad. I'm not going to lie. It's pretty bad. Yeah, it was one of those where she just went, okay. I could feel the condescending head pat. Okay, well, you tried.
Yeah. You didn't wreck the car.
I mean,
you didn't really drive it.
It looks like a 1998 Microsoft Paint drawing from.
Oh.
I mean, it was bad. No lie, it was real bad. But sometimes time savings isn't time savings, but that's the advice that as authors, we have to give to ourselves. Sometimes the time savings isn't the time savings. Just because we can do something doesn't mean that we should do something. Doesn't mean that we do it the best. And sometimes when we think we're saving money, we're costing ourselves reputation, and we're costing ourselves public relations, and we're costing ourselves in areas that we're not even able to articulate or equate, right? Mm-hmm. So we could have put that graphic out on social media, but because we were trying to be sure everybody knew that we were a high quality endeavor, that would have hurt us reputationally. It would have hurt our entire branding. And so I'm really grateful that I have somebody that says, oh no, put that in the box. Don't ever show that to anybody ever again. Don't ever do that.
That'll be for April Fool's next year.
Yeah, exactly. That was bad. So, and I think that's, as authors and as business people, we have to be humble enough to accept that and say, well, that's not my zone of genius. That's what I say to myself. Well, that's just not my zone of genius. My zone of genius is over here. And I don't edit. I'm a terrible editor. I am terrible. I catch proofreading and that stuff, but I don't edit well. So we have two managing editors that edit well and work with the authors really well. And that's their zone of genius. We let them operate in that zone of genius. So it's, my name is publisher, but really I'm just everybody's like, what can I get you today to make your job easier to do?
But that's leadership, right? It's not about you doing everything. It's about you helping people get what they want, what they need to get it done, right? Like there's so many people that are better at me and so many other things. And if I can just make it easier for them to do that, then you get the benefit of that.
It's my job to clear the decks.
Yeah,
it's my job to clear the decks. It's my job to get rid of the friction for our customers, our readers. It's my job to get rid of the friction with our writers. It's my job to get rid of the friction from the production schedule. Like, we just optimized our production schedule. Just loosely, I'll tell you, we started with everything started in Google Docs, right? And the writers would write in Google Docs. And then from there, we would take the Google Doc, and then we would have to put it in 5 places. We would put it on the website in a WordPress situation. Then we would put it in the magazine, but we had to put it in 2 different versions of InDesign because one was interactive and one was print. And then we would also put it into Scrivener so that we could produce the EPUBs. And then from Scrivener, it would go to Atticus, Vellum, or Readsy. And we were trying all 3 different. So, but what was happening was, so this one document was in 5 different places here. And then we would get it to a place where we would do a final proof, and we have an errata document. And the first couple of months, it was like we had like 20 or 30, right, where we would have to go back and change it. And we have to change it in 5 places at that point. That's what's so stressful. Well, that wasn't sustainable because last month we had 190 things that we had to fix. And they're little things. They're typos or errors or links, or, I mean, they're little tiny things that, quite honestly, I don't catch. But we catch them when we're looking at the PDF format. We've looked at this document. We just got this blindness to certain formats.
Sure.
And so we didn't catch it until it was in the PDF. And sometimes we didn't catch it until it was in the app, because as you're looking at it, some things were glaring. And so we said, well, how can we streamline this? Because it was taking 20 hours to fix the errata document. It was taking 20 hours to go back and fix it in all those places. And sometimes we wouldn't catch it in all of those places. And so what we've changed it to is, rather than have the Google document, we now have it starting in WordPress. And then WordPress, actually, the final, drop dead edit is there. And then that filters out to the rest of them. But it took, and it sounds like, well, gosh, that sounds really silly, but it took recalibrating the way that the writers got things notified. It changed the way that the editors and the order that the editors would get them in. It changed the way and the time frame that Alice would start to lay out the magazine and where she would stop and do certain things. So, it took us 6 months to get to that. It took us 6 months to iterate and optimize it until we got it to the place where it actually made sense for all the processes and all the people. And that change was hard. I mean, it was really hard. We had some people that were just like, I can't write in WordPress. I can't do this. And I was like, well, you can submit it, but it's going to get to WordPress. You're going to put it in WordPress, right? And you can write it in Google Drive all you want, but I'm not going to see it. So if it doesn't get into WordPress, it's not going to get in the magazine. And we just kind of had to. But I also streamlined that WordPress so that they don't see all the superfluous stuff. And that kind of comes back to me clearing the decks. They don't see the tags, and they don't see the featured image, and they don't see all the extra meta stuff that goes on the side of a blog post. They don't need to see all that. They just need to see the assignment memo, the date that it's due. And, when they hit publish, it doesn't publish, it goes to the next step in the process. And that's all. So I've streamlined it down for them to just the bare bones and just what they need to be able to, need and do. And that to me is the best version of what I do. And my job is just to clear the decks and get it to the place where we're making it sustainable and streamlined for everybody. But it took 6 months for us to know that that was a problem and to know that that was hard and stressful.
Right. You had to actually be doing it to see, okay, now I can improve the process.
Yes. And that comes down to how we are changing some of the articles too, because now we have 6 months of data. We know what people are reading on the magazine. We know what people are looking at and how long they're looking at it. We know looking at the app, right? We can now make changes based on data, as opposed to just going, well, we think they like this. We think this is a cool article.
It's what I want to read.
I mean, but now we know. Now we know, we thought health and wellness would be great. Now we know health and wellness is fantastic. People are very interested in specifics of how things work and what they can do, and chair yoga and short massages and, all the little tips that we put in there. Those are very short articles, but they're the number one things people read on the magazine, which surprised me. It surprised me. I'm very often surprised by the data.
Well, that's the cool thing now, is being able to capture all this and see, you can be proven wrong. And
I'm happy to be proven wrong.
Yeah.
I'm very happy to be proven wrong. I like it but I have to be proven wrong with the data. I can't be proven wrong by someone else's opinion of something, because opinions are subjective and it's based on your experience and right. That's why we're not prescriptive in the magazine. There's no two ways up the mountain of success. We say that all the time. That's a legacy saying from Michael Anderle and Craig Martell. We know that there's no one way up the mountain. So we're going to present different ways, opposing points of view, counterpoints, points, and then point people to the place where we got that data so that they can go do the research themselves too. So we don't want to be like we're a kiosk of information. We're the information desk, and we're going to point you in the right direction. We're Sherpas. We're going to point you to the right path up the mountain.
Well, speaking of pointing people to the right path, where can they? I mean, we'll put a link underneath in the show notes so that they can. But why don't you tell people about where they should go and to get the best experience? I mean, I know you named a lot of different things where it's being distributed, but where do you want them to go?
So go to the mothership. That's indieauthormagazine.com. And when you get to indieauthormagazine.com, you can just sign up for our newsletter straight up, and then you'll get our newsletter. You can start a free 7-day trial from the magazine. There's a little button there that says how to read IAM. It's the first button in the middle of the page on every page. And you can see all the places you can read the magazine. But if you go to indieauthormagazine.com, you can sign up for a subscription, or you can go to any of the other places and pick up the print version or the EPUB version or the Audible version or, right? But if you go to the magazine, pick your poison once you get there, indieauthormagazine.com.
Great. And then as far as stuff you're doing, are you still writing, or is this just
I am. Yeah. One of the things that we said when we started the magazine was that because there's 24 of us and we're all working indie authors, that our work came first. And so now my team is holding me to that and back to it. So I sprint every morning from 6 to 8 with my sprint group, and I'm finishing up my paranormal mystery.
Awesome.
Yeah. So
do we have a launch date yet? Or
I don't have a launch date, because I swore I would never, ever do another. I wouldn't put it up for pre-order until I had the first draft done, because I got banned from Amazon for pre-orders for a whole year. I served my sentence and published in anthologies during that time because I was in the naughty box. So, so I published short stories for a whole year waiting to get out of the box.
Well, and that's such a undue stress too, right?
It is. Again, the shame spiral, the walk of shame. I didn't want to have to do that ever, ever, ever again. So, but focused on the magazine. I feel like the magazine words are my words because I see 118,000 of them every month. And that's how many words are in the magazine every month, is an average of 118,000. We're producing two full novels every month, if you think about it that way.
Well, it is. It's pretty crazy when you think about how that didn't exist a year ago. Right. And how quick that's scaled up. And I'm sure from your perspective, there's been countless fires that you've had to put out, but it seems to have been really, from the customer perspective, pretty seamless.
We've tried to make it really seamless. I have to say, I'm very, very lucky to have the team I have. It's not me. I mean, I get to do what I get to do, but I didn't have to worry about anything else. I didn't have to worry about how beautiful it was because Alice had that covered. I didn't have to worry about having great content because Erica Everest and Robin Sardi, the managing editors, had that covered. So, every writer turned in their very, very best. every single time and researched everything thoroughly. So yes, I'm very proud of it, but I'm mostly proud of the people that produced it alongside me. And it was very much a team effort. This was not me. This was me just kind of going, yeah, we're doing it. Yeah. And everybody else doing it.
That's awesome.
I'm really, really proud of this team. I'm really proud. And they're all my friends. So I get to go to work and play with my friends every day. How cool is that? I have the best job ever.
How many of you do you think will be at 20 books? I know you've got an international team, so some of them don't have a choice.
Gutted. Yeah, so I'm gutted. Most of our team won't be there, to be honest. I think probably there will be 4 of us out of the 24, because we have our friends in Ireland and Northern Ireland and the UK and Germany and Kuwait and Belgium that can't get in, that won't be able to come. We're still sort of on pins and needles to see. Elaine Bateman, who's in England, is tweeting Joe Biden and Kamala Harris every day, asking for permission to get in. So far, they haven't answered her, but she asks nicely every time. So we're hoping. But yeah, as of right now, it's just going to be me and Alice and Mary Mayweather and Brie Lockhart because we're in the States. Yeah, we're the only ones that are in the States. So
yeah, I've noticed with, I was just at NINC and some of the other things I've been going to. It's like even the folks that are prepared to go, a lot of times just what they have to go through when they get back is too time consuming.
Quarantine.
So, I get it.
Yeah. We have two writers in Canada that aren't gonna. We're gonna try it, but then it opens, it closes, and they can't be sure, and they've got dogs and husbands and all kinds of other things and responsibilities, so they can't really count on that. It's been we had this huge party planned, and we were all really excited to be in the same room at the same time together for the first time since SPF in London, which was in early 2020. And so now we're all like, oh man, this is awful. So we're going to try for 20 books in Madrid. We're going to see if 20 books Madrid is the better option. We're all booked to go. So, and we all got a house. I haven't bought
my plane ticket, but I am signed up for the conference.
Yeah. So. We got a house in Malaga the week before, so we can all get our shenanigans and squeals and jumps up and down and pool time and lots of gin out of the way first. So.
All right, Chelle, it's been great having you on. Really appreciate all the good advice, and congratulations on your magazine.
Thank you. Yeah, we appreciate your insider insights you've written for us, and hope you'll continue to share your good wisdom with our readers, because that's really what it's all about, is leveraging the best, smartest people in the room. And so thanks to you. We appreciate you too.
Yeah. Just let me know when you need me again. I'm around.
Every day? How are you? Busy every day?
No, it was a pleasure working with Robin. She was great. So yeah.
Robin is amazing. She's fantastic.
So yeah, I went after she got it all cleaned up. I was like, wow, this is really good. Who wrote this? All right. Thanks a lot, Chelle.
Thanks, Joe.
Bye.